I obviously born in the UK, born in a village called Yampton, which is, if you ever heard of the story Old Mother Hubbard, like that is actually in my village. So like that's, and I was born in the village, didn't make it to the hospital, but I think from a young age, I always knew that there was a God. It wasn't just knew specifically what God, but I just knew I just always felt there was something. And from a young age, I think I experienced abuse, you know, in many different ways. And I think that from such a young age, like feeling that guilt and shame, and feeling the image of God, was I just pictured these like this presence of a holy God, but I thought that it was like he looked at me and seen me disgusting, because that's how I see myself. And growing up in that, I just felt always as an outsider, even like in my family, even in my friends. I just seeing the world differently. I would question what is wrong and right. I think that growing up as well, like always trying to look for role models, and I'd see like people like Rocky Balboa, like my heroes, that just model my shape, like who I was around these like key figures in life, which was like, these are all like the macho men, like tough guys, and you know, and I would go out and like get in fights and stuff like that, but I'd punch someone in the face and my heart would break, and I'm like, this isn't me, like this, it was weird, it was like this battle going on. And even when it comes with women, I knew that like I would put so much effort into like pulling women, like trying to jump into bed with women, but when it come to it, I just knew this wasn't right. I knew there was something missing. I knew that it wasn't a loving thing. I knew that I was taking something from them. I knew that it was I couldn't work it out, and I talked to my friends about it, and I'm like, do you ever experience this? I remember like, do you guys ever feel like disgusting after like wanking? I'm like, I don't know why, I just feel like there's something not right there. And I always wrestled with it, and I think I'd always, like, long story short, like as well, like I'm dyslexic, so I couldn't read and write. And growing up through school, like I could never fit in, like, because they always put me like in like special classes and stuff, and so like, even the way I've seen the world, I questioned it differently. Even my academic level, just I was at the bottom, always at the bottom, like of everything. And then like growing up in that, I just always felt like on the outside. But what happened was, there's been a few moments in my life where I've like come near death, or I've really challenged the Lord. For example, there was a time me and my buddies, we went out fishing, and we drove out onto the ocean. We had this like little 8-foot boat, and the day was like, the water was calm as, really smooth. We're in this tiny like little 8-foot boat, 3 of us in it. We're driving out into the ocean, and we're like right out the back. We spend like, because we want to catch some fish, we want to go like deeper just to get some bigger fish. And then we're out there, and we go to turn back in, to turn around and come back, because it started to get choppy. And we run out of fuel, and as we undo the lid, a wave comes over and smashes into the engine, floods the engine. And then the ocean, right, it just got hectic, and like the waves are smashing the boat, in this tiny boat. And I seen my 2 friends who hated God, complete atheists, just absolutely could not stand him. It got to a point, because it was freezing cold as well, like 3 minutes in the water, you would have died of hypothermia. And so seeing this like happen and stuff like that, the waves like smashing in the boat, we all thought we were going to die. We had these guys crying in the boat, just crying their eyes out, and they started shouting for help. And I was like, guys, you need to shut up, like you're scaring me. And I was like, what we can do, we can pray. And so I was at the front of the boat, and I was like, okay guys, and they were like, Dan, like, what are you going to do? How are we going to pray? And I was like, I don't know, let's just hold our hands together like this, and we'll just pray. And we did that, and we just prayed. And you know what? The ocean went flat. the sun come out, and it was like instant as well. And in that time, we seen this amazing miracle. We started just worshiping, we were just singing, we were just like, oh my goodness, like the Lord has heard us, like we were praying. But the thing is, we seen the sign, give it like 2 days later, like they're back at school, back at everything, they're denying it. They were like, yeah, you know, like, I don't know, it could have been a coincidence. And even with myself, I was like, yeah, you know, maybe it was just a coincidence, that maybe that was a thing. And then anyway, more years go down the track. I'm working now. I got kicked out of home. I'm living on a building site. I remember praying to the Lord again. I was like, okay, Lord, I was driving my little scooter, and I was like, Lord, I really want to experience you today. I was like, I know you to be there, and like, I just want to know if it is, like, who it is I'm talking to. Like, do you hear me? And there was a point where I was on the way to the work leaving work every day. There was a crossroads, and I'd always shoot straight across this crossroads. Anyway, coming up to this junction, I remember just like getting annoyed at the end of the day, because I was like, Lord, I've been all day waiting for you. All you'd have had to have done is shown up like a butterfly or something, I would have believed. And yet, even though there was a sense that there was a belief there in the first place, I was just challenging him. And you know what? I went up to go up to this junction, my scooter just turned off, and it wouldn't start. Like, it started like cutting out, and just like, it was really weird. I was rolling down the hill, but just as I was getting to the junction, as I was rolling, the truck just goes like straight past, and instantly I knew it was the Lord. And the same thing happened again. Like, I worshipped him, but it didn't last. Like, there was like, I knew him to be true. I worshipped him. I didn't change. Like, yeah, I knew there was a God. I believed in Christ. Like, but it still wasn't a heart change. And then, bear in mind, in this time, because of my reading and writing and stuff, I always wanted to be a family man. I always knew I had to look after myself, and so because I was dyslexic and I couldn't get an everyday job, I'd be really creative in like how I'd make money. And one of the things, if it was Christmas time, how I'd make money is I'd dress up as Santa Claus. I'd go knock on people's doors and sing my song and just give them. I'd be like, I'm raising money for charity. Here guys, here's the charities I'm raising money for. And it was all lies. Like, I was the charity, and I was like, and this is how I'd make money. And people would just be throwing money at me. And you imagine like doing that from door to door to door, you'd make a fortune. I was making more money than my parents were. And it was insane. I was like, and then that was good for a season, but then what happened was I started printing money. Just had in this cheap printer. I would like get this normal A4 bits of paper, screw it up, and then flatten it out like on the side. I'd just be sat in my bedroom just doing that for days on end. Have all this money, go out and just go spend it all. Because when you spend it, you get real money back. So the more I was going out, having these shopping sprees, the more money I'd end up getting back. So it was a win-win. It was like, this is awesome. Like, this is such a crazy life. See you later, guys. Nice to meet you, man. And so there was all of that going on, and you know, I'd even church roofs. I would dress up in like tradie like work uniform, walk into a church with my big ladder, put it up going up to the roof, walk up to the roof, take all the lead off the roofs, be there all day. Because I'm in like trading stuff, no one ever questioned me. Just rip all the lead. These churches were like ancient. They're like, you should see these temples, like. And I'm there just like ripping the lead off the roof, and you know what? Even in me, I was just like, there was always a justification. There was always, and one of the reasons how I justified it, and because I've seen the Lord do these miracles, and I knew Him to be true, I justified it because I was like, I can't read and write, and because I can't read and write, I can't read the Bible. So therefore, I'm like, I'm guilt-free. You know what I mean? I'm kind of like, it's okay. I can do what I want because I don't know the Lord, and even though it was written upon my heart, and what happened, like coming up to, so about it took about 4 years, my family wanted to move to Australia. In that 4 years, I was getting later on, it was probably about 19, 20 at this stage, or 18 to 20. I needed a clean record to get to Australia, like kind of the opposite to how you guys got here. And you know, that really kept me accountable, because I was like, I'm stealing stuff. I was really cautious, because I was like, I can't afford to get caught. If I get caught, I'm going to end up staying in the UK. And if I stay in the UK, I remember saying to the Lord, I was like, if I stay here, I'm gone. There is going to be no conviction. I'm just going to go live it. I'm just going to go do what I want to do. I'm not going to think about you anymore. This is like my way. Anyway, going about six weeks before coming to Australia, I went out with some friends and ended up getting in a fight in my city. And it was a group fight, and I've actually still got a scar on my arm where I had someone on a headlock and he was biting my arm. I've still got the teeth marks there now. And yeah, and I remember even that night, this is how brutal I was. I remember like kicking someone in the head, and like, I don't say that as like disgrace. Like, I physically kicked someone in the head. Yeah, and it was just, and it was all on CCTV. Got arrested that night. I remember in the cell that night just having such a fear, because I was like, oh my goodness, like if I don't get to Australia, that's it. Like, I'm not. There was a fear of me, like being in my utter depravedness, like giving myself to that darkness, because I was always on the fence. I was always back and forth, and that night I prayed in the cell, and I was like, Lord, you know, I was like, I'm kind of scared now that I'm gonna be, the thought of me stepping out of him, because in a sense that he always had my hand on my life, and he did protect me. But I remember that night, I really felt convicted to go to church. And I spoke to my lawyers the next day, and my lawyer was like, Dan, there's no way you're going to go to Australia. There is no way. We got CCTV of you kicking someone in the head. And they're like, you're done. Like, there's no way you're... and I was like freaking out at this point, because I'm like, this is so scary. But anyway, I went to church the next day, and I went and sat at the back, had no idea, nothing made any sense to me. Like, it actually made no sense. I couldn't understand one word they were saying. But I sat next to this old lady, and at the back, and I remember at the end of the service, she just looked at me, and just her looking at me, it was really strange. I just knew there was something about it that just really convicted me. She didn't say anything, she just looked at me, and I just burst out into tears, and got out of there. And I remember being so angry with God. I was like, I cannot believe you made me cry in front of those people. I cannot believe, like, I'm like trying to be this tough guy, hated emotions, hated the thought of crying in front of anybody. Moving on again, and was coming up to my court case, about to stand into court. My lawyers didn't show up, and I had to stand and give witness to for myself. My lawyer, literally, I don't even know where he was. I walked into court, and there was just like, I don't know if you guys have ever seen like an English courtroom, but there's like people all around, like just judges and juries and everything. And there was a massive argument in the court case. Anyway, the judge asked me to step outside. I stood outside, and then someone at the messenger come outside and said, Dan, you've just been let off. They were like, she was like, I've never seen this before. She was like, it's a miracle. She even said it was a miracle. She was like, how did you get it? What have you done? Like, I've never seen this before. You got let off. Anyway, long story short again, I come to Australia, and I'm in Australia now, and I always said to the Lord, if he got me to Australia, I would change. Coming to Australia, tried to live my moral life, and I sucked at it. I failed and failed and failed, and I just come to this realization. I was like, you know, I make such a good bad person. It comes so easily and naturally to me. I'm so creative on like ripping people off and making schemes and scams, like making money. And I was like, it's easy. Like, even if I was to follow you, I'd make a crap Christian. it makes like, I'm like, you don't want someone like me. And yeah, and I just remember just repeating that and justifying myself once again why I wasn't a Christian. An opportunity come up while I was looking for work, and it was to be a porn star in the newspaper. And I was like, that's awesome, like that's great, that's my type of a job. I want to be a porn star. Bear in mind, because I was so convicted with like wrong and right, I couldn't work it out. I couldn't, at the same time, I wanted to be a porn star, but yet I'd feel convicted. I couldn't watch porn myself. And I was like, isn't it just so strange? I was just like, where does this come from? Like, what is going on? Like, I'm so divided, even as a non-believer. Yeah, and so I applied for the job. They asked me to send in some photos. I sent in some photos and like have interviews and stuff. And then this one day, I remember I was on the way to go to the interview, and they had all these, to do my first film, and it was going to be me, and I was going to be sat in front of a camera and doing stuff, and anyway, super weird. Anyway, there was an old man that spoke to me in that time, and the same thing with the lady in the church. It was a similar thing with this old man. He said, Dan, like, stay here tonight. That's what he told me. And it was the same thing of like, there was an authority that spoke through him that I knew was of God. Like, I knew that God didn't want me to do this. And I had that fear, and I was like, a realization. I was like, no, like, I can't do this. Like, what am I thinking? Like, what am I doing? And so I was like, Lord, you've got to help me in this time. So I ended up going to church. I went to church. I listened to the sermon. I ended up crying my eyes out again. So frustrated. I was so angry with God because I cried again. And I was like, stop playing with my emotions. Like, stop doing this to me. Like, I want to be free from that. I don't want you to you're pulling my heartstrings, and I'm sick of it. And then what happened was, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to find a really big church, and I'm going to put a hoodie on. I'm going to sit at the back. I don't want anyone to see me. And if I'm going to cry, I just want a hoodie where I can hide myself so no one can see me. And I got so nervous before going to that church service, and I started to drink, and I sat in the car park before, and I bought a 6-pack, just down a bunch of beers, having cigarettes, just get rid of the anxiety so I had confidence to go in. So I got pretty drunk, ended up going to sit in the back of the church, and the same thing happened again, cried my eyes out. I wasn't even listening to sermons, but I just kept going to church, and I just felt this presence. And I was talking to people afterwards, and I'd hear them talk about the cross of Christ. And then it was about a week later of pondering like the story of Jesus and the story, and I'm like, I get to this point where I'm like, it really annoys me that Christians get emotionally moved by the story of Jesus dying on the cross. I'm like, what is it so significant about the cross that people get emotional about? I'm like, surely they can't be real. Like, surely how? Like, I see someone die on the news, and that doesn't emotionally affect me. But Jesus died 2,000 years ago. I didn't even see that. I haven't seen anything of it. And why doesn't, like, how is that possible that emotionally grips someone's heart? I remember saying this to the Lord, and one night, and I just was super honest, and I was like, Lord, like, I don't understand this. I said that to him. I said, Lord, I don't understand this. The picture of the cross, it doesn't mean anything to me. And I was like, Lord, as a matter of fact, I do know you, and I know you to be there, but I don't love you. I genuinely don't love you. And I had this fear of saying that to him, but almost as if he was going to cut me off and wipe his hands with me. Anyway, I went to bed that night, and I remember waking up in the night, and I just could see my sin. I just felt my sin. I could feel like having all the images of like what I've done, like how many times I've broken his heart, how many people I've wronged, and and even seeing like all the people that I've wronged, that was to the Lord as well. It like that wasn't necessarily, it was for them, and I broke their hearts, but even more so did I break the Lord's heart. And it just gripped me, and I fell to my knees, and I was like, Lord, I was like, you've got to kill me. I was like, please be gracious enough to just cut me off, just squash me. I do not deserve to take another breath, and please, he would have been, I seen him to be just in that moment if he killed me at that time. I wanted him to kill me without his judgment. And then what happened was, and I just had a glimpse of my sin as well. I just had a glimpse. There's no way I would have killed I couldn't. The Lord I wouldn't have been able to handle my sin as what the Lord would have. And he was gracious to me and showed me a glimpse of that as well. And I remember in that moment, I just remembered the story of the cross. And I remember he bore my sins. And I was like, it just hit me. It hit me in a whole new level. Like it made sense. And you know what? I've seen all those miracles before. I've seen endless miracles as a Christian and even before Christ. And that doesn't change the heart. It doesn't change the heart. And what changes the heart is knowing the gospel, knowing the state of who you are, the sinner that I am, and yet he loves me, and he died for me, and he took my sin, and it was that changed my heart. It was that then I could wake up the next day and not fully grasping everything, but all I knew was he loves me, he's paid it for me, and it wasn't this trying to clean myself up afterwards. It wasn't me trying to live this moral life. I was free from all of that. I was free from it all. Like, I don't have to. Christ has paid it all. He has done it. Like, he's done everything. And now I can just boast in him. And, you know, and I can boast in my weakness. Like, I fail every day. And, you know, he still loves me. Like, he still loves me. And even just as a Christian, just being able to repent of sin, like what a beautiful journey that is to grow into the image of him. Like, I just remember, like, with so many things in my life, just like, like I see this, like pornography, for example, at the time, like struggling with that. I'm like, I don't want that anymore. I want you. And yet, that was like just the chains of being broken free, you know? But the desires of it, like, he gave me a new heart, and I don't desire the things of the world anymore. And that's, I think that as well, like, it doesn't take, like, I hear Christians say, like, oh, you know, I haven't really got much of a testimony, I kind of grew up in a Christian house and stuff like that, and I think it's tragic to hear that, because it's tragic because Jesus still died for them. They are sinners, and took Christ alive to die for them, for him to be reconciled with them. And there is no lame testimony. There is no, and you know, it's just anyway, that's my story. As coming to Christ, and that's my journey.
Yeah. That gonna be singing.